Hina Suresh to please felicitate our chair, Professor Rajvi Sharma. I will request Ruchika ma'am to kindly felicitate Dr. Uttam Kumar Sinha. Please request sir to kindly felicitate PK Mishra ji. Pawan sir to please felicitate PK Mishra ji. Let's keep the applause going, please. And now, request Dr. Sunil Kumar Sharma, Principal Science Department,
Professor Sanjeev, the distinguished Professor of Science, University of Delhi, Dr. Uttam Kumar, my esteemed and other places. In fact, right since morning, it has been a great event for me. Many things I learned and many things I unlearned. It's a matter of great privilege for me to be here as the chair of this session. The panelists consist of very distinguished persons in the field, and we hope that we will get ideas on different dimensions of the theme of the day. वैसे तो जो एंकर अभी शुरू में बोल रही थी, उन्होंने मेरा काम बहुत हल्का कर दिया क्योंकि इंट्रोडक्शन उन्होंने इतना अच्छा दिया सब्जेक्ट का, थीम का, कि मेरे पास कोई बहुत ज्यादा बोलने के लिए रहा नहीं as the chairman. That is still क्योंकि chairman कुछ ना कुछ तो बोलना ही. मुझे लगता है कि थीम के 3 हिस्से हैं और अगर हम उन 3 हिस्सों को सही मायनों में एनालाइज करें तो आज का भारत what exactly is happening and nobody can predict also. So today's world, in my opinion, is an unpredictable world, is an uncertain world. Whether it is in the field of economics, politics, security, or any other aspect. Number 2, as many earlier speakers have emphasized, that security itself, the concept of security, has undergone a change, tremendous change. Earlier, perhaps, we used to hear only of wars. The battles. Security was seen in terms of winning or losing a battlefield. But now perhaps war is not the first choice of protecting our national interests. Protection of national interests has been a part of realist foreign policy. Right since ancient times. If you read Kautilya and his theory of war and peace, his theory of Sadguna, his theory of four upayas, then it was nothing but the explanation of the strategic thinking and strategic culture of India to face the threats and challenges of security. But at that time also, Kautilya did emphasize that our military might may not be enough. Military might is really linked with our economic might. और जितना हम इकोनॉमिकली स्ट्रॉन्ग होंगे, जितनी हमारी इकोनॉमी स्ट्रॉन्ग होगी, उतना ही हमारा पावर, उतना ही हमारा इन्फ्लुएंस, उतना ही हमारा जो स्टेटस है द कम्युनिटी ऑफ नेशंस होगा. वो जो कौटिल्य ने उस समय कहा था, आज के समय में भी उनका ये कहना मुझे सच ही लगता है. क्योंकि अगर किसी देश की इकोनॉमी वीक है तो वो कितना ही कहते हैं कि हमारे पास न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब है. एक बार कहता है न्यूक्लियर बॉम्ब है, दूसरी तरफ कहता है कि हम आपको रिटेलिएट तो करेंगे नहीं. तो क्या कारण है कि वो एक तरफ तो धमकी भरे शब्दों में बोलते हैं और दूसरी तरफ फिर वो बड़े दबू किस्म के भाषा में आ जाते हैं. उसका कारण है उनकी इकोनॉमी. क्योंकि अगर वो बाहर होती है position to sustain it. तो ये जो थॉट्स हैं कौटिल्य के, वो आज भी वैलिड है। और दूसरी बात ये कि security is not merely military security. जैसा सभी लोगों ने कहा है, इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी इज वेरी important. Not only the security of the borders, but the security of economy, enhancement of economic power. और तीसरी बात जो मैं कहना चाहूंगा वो ये कि भारत पिछले बहुत साल से विश्व के पटल पर एक महत्वपूर्ण आवाज बन करके उभरा है। और इसलिए भारत playing a very crucial role, a very important role in not only globally, but the regional politics and regional security is also becoming quite significant. That we all know. Alliances बन रहे हैं, alliances टूट रहे हैं और दूसरे किस्म की अप्रोच हमारे सामने आ रही है। भारत ने इन परिस्थितियों को समझा है और उन परिस्थितियों को समझकर अपनी फॉरेन पॉलिसी को रीओरिएंट किया है। फॉरेन पॉलिसी हमारी नेशनल सिक्योरिटी का एक हिस्सा बना है, चाहे वो G20 हो। अगर आप रीजनल स्टेबिलिटी की बात करें तो रीजनल स्टेबिलिटी को कायम करने के लिए, अचीव करने के लिए बहुत सारे जो रीजनल ग्रुपिंग्स हैं, भारत न केवल उनका एक अहम हिस्सा है, बल्कि भारत अपने आप में एक लीडिंग रोल वहां पर प्ले कर रहा है। बिम्स्टेक एक बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट रीजनल ग्रुपिंग है और उसमें भारत की एक अहम भूमिका है। आसियान इंपॉर्टेंट ग्रुप है, भारत उसका एक अहम हिस्सा है। ऐसे ही जो क्वेड है जिसमें भारत है, यूएसए है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया है, जापान है, माने आसियान कंट्रीज भी हैं, साउथ एशियन कंट्रीज भी हैं और उनका एक तरीके से लीडरशिप का रोल निभा रहा है भारत। इसके साथ ही बहुत सारे जो हमारे इकोनॉमिक संधियां हैं उनमें भी भारत की एक अहम भूमिका रही है। इस संदर्भ में आज के जो हमारे पैनलिस्ट हैं उनके विचार हम सुनेंगे। हाउ इंडिया has played a balancing role. जो बैलेंस ऑफ पावर है, that in fact has also been a priority. Peace has been a priority. भारत की जो पॉलिसी है, that policy is mainly a policy of peace, goodwill, serving the humanity, and वसुधैव कुटुंबकम। मतलब ये है कि भारत ने इंक्लूजन की पॉलिसी अपनाई है और ये जो आज का प्रेजेंट डिस्पेंसेशन है, प्रधानमंत्री मोदी के नेतृत्व में जो काम कर रहा है, वो लगातार एक नारे को दोहराते हैं और वो है सबका साथ सबका विकास। माने वो केवल डोमेस्टिक पॉलिसी पे ही लागू नहीं होता है। सबका साथ सबका विकास is not merely being referred in case or in context of the indigenous population, Indian people. लेकिन सबका साथ, सबका विकास जो हमारे फॉरेन पॉलिसी है उसका भी हिस्सा है। भारत किसी भी देश को पीछे छोड़ना नहीं चाहता। Nobody should be left out is the basic approach of India, and in that context, India has gained not only recognition as a responsible state, but India is also telling the world that we can resolve conflicts through dialogue, through discussions. War is not the first option. War should not be the first option. Is the emphasis which India is making right from the ancient times till today. और अगर वार फर्स्ट ऑप्शन नहीं है तो प्रधानमंत्री तो कहेंगे दिस इज नॉट द एज ऑफ वॉर। रशिया को बताएंगे कि ये era of war नहीं है, this is not the time of war. Why? Because he in fact knows the cultural roots, the ideological roots of conflict resolution, which India has. And I'm certain I will not take much of the time of the experts sitting here. They will enlighten us more. I would first request Dr. Uttam Kumar Sinha to kindly come and deliver his talk.
Thank you. Good afternoon. First and foremost, let me thank the organizers, Shamla College, for having invited me. I must compliment myself that I have managed to come. Because I was caught in the middle of so many things, given what the situation is. The institute from where I belong, in fact, been working for the last 25 years. It's called the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. It is now called the Manohar Parrikar, honoring the former defense minister. Interestingly, this is the 60th year of IDSA. So it's not that something came yesterday. And IDSA as an institution, which was formed in 1965, has brought in lots of perspective on what India's national security is, what it should be, and how we should deal with the complexities of international system. In 1965, our security situation overall was not very good. We had the 1962 war with China. We were in the midst of a war with Pakistan in 1965. Pandit Nehru passed away in May 1964, so there was a bit of a leadership crisis because Lal Bahadur Shastri also passed away later on in Tashkent for a very brief period. So internally, there was a lot of political churning going on, and externally, we saw our borders were rather weak. So there was a whole lot of governmental emphasis on how we should strengthen our national security. National security is not just the work of military people guarding the borders or the paramilitary forces who stand alert. It is a collective exercise of everyone. I think IDS's formation was precisely to build and to sensitize the public in large that what national security is all about. So seeing you all today, you look more like students from a school wearing, the same uniform. But it brings in a collective desire, I think, and our soldiers wearing uniform on the border There's this collective spirit to guard our borders in particular. Professor Sharma said that there's never a time for war. Right? Actually, there is never a time for war. We never actually want war, but we need to be prepared for. I think this is generally the principle which makes us, even the peace living country like India, think on those terms. Sometimes war is thrust upon you, even if you don't want. And therefore, our response mechanism has to be strong enough to deal with that kind of crisis. You're all students of political science, but I'm sure at some point of time you might have casually read William Shakespeare's plays. One of the play is King Lear. The King Lear and his confidant, the Duke of Gloucester. He's a blind man. And in one of the conversation that the king has with the Duke of Gloucester, he asks the Duke of Gloucester, who's a blind man, how does he see the world? How does he see the world? And the Duke of Gloucester says, with feeling, international system, the dynamics of international system doesn't see things with feeling. So it is not sentimental, and it's neither emotional. Largely, the international system remains anarchic. Right? There is chaos, there is turmoil. There's always a desire to reach a stable global order. There's an aspiration which some states have to maintain a certain global order, to maintain peace and stability. But essentially, the system, the international system, is always unstable, searching for stability. And even today, in this world, Professor Sharma described as unpredictable and chaotic, we find that the distance of that stability is going further away. And that makes the international system increasingly increasingly risky. What we are seeing in the international system is an assertion of territoriality. There is an increasing feel of nationalism. There is this aggressive desire to control resources. And the whole system, the definition of that is largely, and it's not nothing new, it's based on interest seeking states. What remains permanent in the international system is interest. You can lose your friends, you can make enemies, but the only thing that remains is your interest, and that defines the state interest. That defines what the international system is. It's a very clinical way of looking at the international system, but that's how it is. That's the reality of it. Let me make a few more sort of what is called impressions over the last few weeks that we are now seeing and encountering. The first impression I gather is that you cannot change your geography, you cannot change your location, and you cannot pick your neighbors. So in that kind of a situation in which we are, Pakistan will remain our neighbor. And it's a reality that we have to deal with. And it's a neighbor which we have encountered for the last 7 decades. We have dealt with that neighbor. We have had wars with that neighbor. And certainly the situation could have been much better had the neighbor been peace-loving, cooperative. If we had a stable sort of zone with them. The problem is with a neighbor like Pakistan and the difficulties that we have has also added difficulties to our whole, economy, progress, etc. And often in studying the region in which you are, South Asia, we often say that India actually doesn't fit into the South Asian region. Given our size, given our aspirations, given our economy, given our structural power, that is military and economic power, we actually shouldn't be here. We should be a striving for greater achievements and greater deeds. But then the reality is that the neighborhood pulls us to it. And the expression here is that if your region is not stable and peaceful, you cannot really aspire for bigger goals. And this is a reality that we see being played out from time to time. And the incident that has happened last week is precisely that. We are pulled into the neighborhood, though we don't want it to happen. The second impression is that since we cannot change geography, we have to learn to live with it. And I have found, and as I interact with students and young researchers, I find that we have lost the sense of geography. I do not know how many of you look at maps these days. If you look at the map, you will find a lot of solution in it. You'll find the reality of our existence in South Asia. It was Mackinder, Alfred Mackinder, and probably some of you must have read the literature or will probably read his books later on. He was the one who introduced the intellectual discipline of geography. And geography is nothing but a bridge between natural science and humanities. Right? So if you understand your geography, if you know your location, where you are, you can get a better picture of what India's national security is all about. It's the sense of the map that gives us a certain picture and the certain dynamic that revolves in this. So don't lose the sense of geography. Also, always understand history. We tend to forget, neglect history. History is not always about revising your history. You have to go back to history to understand how the genesis of the problem originated. So when you look at Pakistan, there's a history behind it. And don't fail not to look at that history. You know, the 1947, the war that happened, the leadership in Pakistan, the way they think, all that is very interesting. And if you bring in history and geography together, you will far easier understand the challenges and complexities of how India exists in its The third impression which I'd like you to carry forward is the word called leverage. Right? Since war seems to always be an impossibility, especially in these times. Leverage is a word that is being played around this day. Does a country have the leverage to do things without actually having a war? And I think India's perspective these days is not actually to go and have war, but to use the leverage, use the strength that he has to turn around the situation in its favor. Now, what could be the leverages that India has vis-a-vis, for example, Pakistan, because we're in the midst of the crisis with Pakistan. Not that we've not been in a crisis with Pakistan, we've always been in a crisis for the last 7 decades. But in today's time, what has happened? How do we use our leverage? And you must be reading a lot of things. That the first leverage is more using the diplomatic pressure to deal with this situation. And then you probably go a ladder up, and then you ultimately think about a war. Right? But sometimes leverage is an important instrument and a tool to use to put pressure on your opponent, right? And to get things that probably a battle or a war will not get you. You will reading now that we are using certain treaties, for example, the Indus Waters Treaty, to leverage and put pressure on Pakistan. It's very interesting and it's very ironical that the treaty, which has survived for 65 years, it was signed in 1916, so 2025 is 65 years of this treaty, which has seen the war, which has seen so many crises with Pakistan. Suddenly, we are using the treaty to put pressure on Pakistan. So that can be regarded as an important leverage in which you deal with your opponent in a certain manner. Pakistan is in a neighborhood where we have often learned to deal with it we publicly, there's an uproar that we describe Pakistan as a rogue state, always trying to stall our progress, always trying to do things that we don't really want to do. The challenge today is how do we respond to the current crisis. And I had laid down the various response mechanism. In fact, everyone today is talking about how we should deal with Pakistan. Pakistan is not an easy country to deal with, and we cannot underestimate Pakistan as a country in terms of the responses that it would have. So our responses has to be well calibrated, thought through. It could take time before we actually respond, but we can't do things in a hurry and get a setback. So what is required in our approach these days, I think the government and the people who are in the policy making, who are thinking upon it, is patience and precision. I think these are two elements that are being fused into how we would eventually respond to Pakistan. But there are always short-term approaches, which is immediate approaches, and there is what is called a mid-term sort of evaluation of situation, and there is a long strategic response to Pakistan. We have to have policies which are long-term and strategic in its approach to Pakistan. We might deal with the situation with immediate reactions, but those might just be quick fixes in dealing with Pakistan. The long-term objective is to ensure that the cross-border terrorism of Pakistan abetting terrorism eventually stops. And it is not an easy thing to do. It's easier said than done, because Pakistan is very clever over the years made terrorism an instrument of state policy. So when you make it as an instrument of state policy, it is well calibrated and well thought through. There are dots which have been put together very carefully over the long years to deal with India. And therefore, our response equally has to be thought in terms of long-term strategies. And there are many long-term strategies. In fact, as students, you should play a war game situation in your classroom. You should have the red and the blue camps, Pakistan and India. You play out these situations. And if the red camp does this, how does the blue camp respond, etc. This is precisely what happens in policy also. Because the situation is so fluid and so unpredictable, you use various scenarios to make a response. And you will be surprised that some of these scenarios are nothing but very common sense scenarios. And the ability to respond is what really makes the strength robust, the state apparatus is robust and firm. What happens with Pakistan doesn't just stay with Pakistan, right? And India, given its larger global reach, will have to also encounter extraordinary powers, whether it's the United States, whether it's China. I think if it was more localized just between India and Pakistan within the region, we could have possibly dealt it more effectively. But conflicts don't stay within regions anymore. There are influences to conflict. There'll be global actors, influences who try to manage this situation. And we are seeing on one end the United States playing a subtle role, and China, which is far more outright in its demonstration of its support for China. So there are actors who also get involved in a conflict that is essentially very regional and very bilateral. So there is this ability in international relation that conflict has the ability to spread. And even in the South Asian context, what we do with Pakistan, the tremors of that is felt in the neighborhood elsewhere, in Nepal, in Bangladesh, in Bhutan, There are several perceptions that will emerge that India probably is the aggressive state. Now, having suspended the treaty, there is already a fear in Bangladesh that what India might do to the Ganga treaty when it is going to be revised in 2026. Nepal always seems to be worried about our equation of the hydro energy that we have with Nepal. Bhutan, we have several cooperation, and they tend to get worried. So again, what happens is that if you look at geography, India is the big country surrounded by smaller countries. And there's a smaller sense of insecurity that always emerges when a big country does something. And this is a challenge that India has to always cope up with in its regional policies. And if you see India's foreign policy, the tenets of that foreign policy is always being bilateral, strengthening your bilateral relationship, whether it's with India and Pakistan, whether it's with India and Nepal, or India, Bhutan, or with India, Bangladesh. Traditionally, it's been bilateral. Even the water treaties that we've had with all these countries are bilateral treaties. But I think there is a new emphasis that is emerging in the South Asian context. It is to look at not just the relationship from a bilateral perspective, but look at it from a more sub-regional perspective. So there is this transition that is happening, which is a movement from bilateral to a group of relationships. So, for example, what we're having is bilateral exists between India and Nepal, India and Bhutan, and India and Bangladesh. There's also this collective sub-regional cooperation of the BBIN, Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, and Nepal. And what binds them together is geography. The rivers bind them together. The monsoon binds them together. The rivers that give irrigation facility binds them together. The rivers that give you electricity and power binds them together. So the changes that you witness in the region is a demonstration of how geography is playing with the needs and requirements humanity in this part of the world. So I think this sense, while you study the politics of the region, the sense of knowing its geography and the historical backdrop to it is equally important for students like you to understand better the region in which we live. The region is volatile from time to time, but the region also brings in uh, 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 an element of stability, and for that stability to exist, India's role is critical in the sub-region, and it has played this role quite effectively despite the challenges that have come as well. Thank you very much, and I look forward to comments and questions later on.
Giving us a very detailed and enlightening talk on different aspects of security and also in terms of how India and what India should do to achieve the target or a goal of regional stability. In May, he has emphasized on 3 or 4 points which are very important in the modern times. One, that no nation can really tackle the problems of the day without having a proper sense of geography and also without losing sight of the history. We should have an understanding of the history and we should also not be careless about the geography. The second thing which he emphasized was that we must use the strength that we have, whether it is cultural, economic, or political, or military. Then he said that every nation, and particularly India, should have a long-term strategic policy. And I think India is
भी जाना है भाई जो भी
doing
हमारी
quite well
कर जाएंगे
in involving both
लड़की वालों की गलती कर रहे
immediate, the midterm as well
हैं यहाँ
as
पे
the
मतलब रहे नहीं तो सारा
long-term
हुआ
responses to the
अच्छा ये
emerging
जो है
situation
ये तो है पीछे ठीक जो लगा
in
कहाँ लगा
and around
माइक
India.
लगा हुआ
Particularly, it is not merely Pakistan focused.
है बाहर अभी
Pakistan is only one kind of instance which we find that often on it comes into play destabilize India. But there are so many other forces in our neighborhood which are as inimical to India as, if not more, as Pakistan is. And therefore, India shall have to evolve their policy. It should not be merely one nation
कोई नहीं है
centric. It should take
तो धीमा चल रहा है
a
तो कैसे क्यों चल रहा है पहले
view
गड़बड़ है क्या
of the national security uh, all around us. Whether it is Myanmar, whether it is Bangladesh, whether it is you know, China. Some people say that China is more dangerous to India than even Pakistan. So therefore, when it decides this national security policy, it has to keep all these things in mind. And the policy experts also shall have to focus on the countries that play a supportive role or a collaborative role in destabilizing the region and destabilizing India as well. I think that one of the very important aspects that he has pointed out is that there was a time when bilateralism perhaps was the core of our international relationship. But over the period of time, there has been a shift from bilateralism to multilateralism. And it is basically to reduce the country's dependence on only one nation. So it's true that even today, our relationship is defined in terms of bilateral relationships, which he rightly pointed out, whether it is Nepal, India, or it is Bhutan, India, or it is even America, India. But it is also a fact that India has realized that the countries with which we have the bilateral relations may not be dependable. And therefore, apart from our relationship with America, we are also moving towards Russia and France, so that they can also be approached if the need be. Thank you, Mr. Sinha, for such a very wonderful talk that you have given to us and bringing to our mind the aspects which perhaps need a deeper understanding and deeper analysis or policy perspectives. Now I invite Dr. P.K. Mishra to kindly give his address.
All professors on the chair. Professors sitting in front of me and would be professors, my sons and daughters. Something very, very strange. I think there is only one person who is not a professor here. So this non-professor will speak to you about professor knowledge. So let us start. I have listened to big professors, experts in their subjects. By the way, I'm not a master of political science. I'm not a master of anything. But I'm just like you, an Indian. And I will speak on that aspect as an Indian. Yes, we love peace. We have about peace. It's a peace-loving nation. I'm asking from Asuk's time till now, have we achieved anything because of this word peace? I am absolutely not clear to my idea whether we have achieved our aim in this country to be a peaceful nation. And our nuclear dictate is not to attack for the first time and keep on being attacked and attacked and attacked. And response, retaliation, defensive action. This is what was our country. I am telling you of my experience on the field, not in any university or what you are being taught. I will give you practicality what is happening in the world. A Mukti Bahini is speaking to you. Gentlemen, you are being told by a Mukti Bahini who is speaking here. So I have seen 71 war and I have participated in that war. No peace will ever give any fruit in our country or anywhere. Ashok's time has gone. Let's close the chapter. If we go behind peace and peace loving, the way a small country has started hitting us, it has been converted to mini Pakistan, the country for which I fought. As an individual, I fought at Jessore in 1971. It has been converted to mini Pakistan. And I am telling you correct. It is exactly like East Pakistan when it was there before 1971. Whether you like it or you don't like. As an Indian, I cannot go there now. As an ex-security officer, I cannot visit to that place, Dhaka or Jessore or Chittagong, in which I was really taken. Flowers were, garlands were given to me in 1971. After that, I can visit. I'll be killed the same day. That's what I told you. No peace will help us. We have waves convention today in Mumbai. I hope you know, all of you. The waves convention. It is being held today in Mumbai, in which 90 countries have participated, with about 11,000 representatives. Mr. our Narendra Modi ji, our Honorable Prime Minister was chairing that. About culture, ethos of India. And artificial intelligence, cyber security. We had a lot of discussions in mid-90s countries were there. So things are different now in the world. I'll tell you, one of our prime ministers was killed abroad. This is peace. When his dead body came to India, I hope nobody can challenge me. When his dead body came to India, the killer accompanied him. One of the killer accompanied him to be checked whether any poison was. That is what was our state. Such a, not father of the nation, but the real fighter of our country, one of the best prime minister. And practically, he was killed. Coming back. We hear ceasefire violation mostly every day. You must be now learning ceasefire violation. A country is utilizing this ceasefire violation. This particular word, it came to Indian security diaspora after the bilateral that treaty signed with Pakistan of Farah.